Hello, everybody. Hi, welcome to our Lunch with the Boxer series. We have another great session today with our coach, athletic director now, Coach Keith Buckley. I feel like you're always going to be Coach Buck to me here. We have a large group today, and so we're going to have some families trickling in. And if it's your first time, if you can make sure that your first and last name is reflected on the screen, and that way, if we're not able to follow up, or if there's any links that we need to follow up with, that we are able to do so to the right person. You can hover over your kind of screen there, and then there should be an option for you to change your name. And then throughout the session, if you have any questions that you want to ask ahead of time, please go ahead and add it in the chat box. If you hover over on the bottom of the screen, there's a little chat bubble there. I put in a note that said, everybody feel free to add in your questions here throughout the session. And if you feel uncomfortable about asking your question for everybody to see, feel free to send me a private message, and I'll filter through all the questions today and hopefully get those answered for you. So once again, thank you for joining us. And I know we also have a couple of families for fall of 2021. You are absolutely welcome to be here, but a lot of this information is going to be geared towards this incoming fall. So just kind of keep in mind, it might be a little bit different for you by the time you come and matriculate next year. So, but it's good to kind of put a face to a name. So while we are waiting, we'll go ahead and get started. Coach Buck, if you can maybe pretend like you've never done this before and introduce yourself and kind of a little bit about your background, and that'll get us some time to bring up some families up to speed and to log in here. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Coach.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. First and foremost, welcome everybody. I'm thrilled to get an opportunity to talk Pacific athletics. After 25 years as a coach, I miss these times. I miss being able to interact with families on a regular basis. Even though this isn't the face-to-face interaction that we all hope for, I'm happy to be here today and happy to talk about our program and really a lot of what the plans are moving forward. But to introduce myself a little bit, I grew up in the Bay Area in California, just a short ways outside of San Jose. Went out to UC Davis and was a college football player at UC Davis. Of all things, majored in English and rhetoric and communications, which you don't see a ton of English major football players, but loved my time academically doing that. And started my coaching career immediately after my playing career at UC Davis. And was very fortunate to work with a number of great coaches at Davis. Got my master's degree as a graduate assistant football coach at the University of Idaho. Did a project through the Center for Ethics at the University of Idaho on moral reasoning and character development in competitive populations, which was just an incredible experience to really dive into what athletics does in terms of moral development and character development in competitive populations. Kind of made the coaching run, was at Humboldt State for a year, was at Stanford in their football program for 3 years in the early 2000s, then went back to UC Davis for a little while and was a recruiting coordinator and assistant head coach at UC Davis. Had never spent a ton of time at the Division III level prior to being hired at Pacific in the summer of '09 to start the football program here. They had not had football at Pacific for 20 years. And I had the fortune of starting from scratch. And much like all of you have gone through this process of investigating our institution and wanting to be a part of our institution, 11 years ago, I did the same exact thing of looking at the campus and identifying if it was a place that I wanted to be. And within a very short time frame of being at Pacific, even from the start on the interview process, we as a family knew this was going to be home for us. Had a tremendous time. I ended up coaching the football team for 10 years and just this fall stepped down at the end of the season to become the athletic director, and look forward to really diving into all the sports and really becoming intimately involved with each program and the development and the needs of those programs. So It's a lot. We've inherited a pandemic as I've transitioned this, and we're doing everything we can to get this thing where it needs to be for you all to show up in the fall.
Awesome. Yeah, we like to make things a little harder for you, start from scratch up from the football program to a world pandemic. So, just keep things interesting here. I think the biggest question for everybody that's been lingering and for us as well is what's going on in the fall with athletics? So we're going to have class, we're going to have session in person or online, but what's up with sports? Is there an update that you could give us if there is an update?
Well, I woke up this morning and we had a conference ADs meeting. And then I immediately went from that meeting into a Forest Grove undergraduate opening meeting. So for the last 3 hours, we have done nothing but talk about what we're trying to get the fall to look like. And I think when I put this meeting on the schedule with Eugenia, we'd anticipated by mid-June, we would know it all.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't, other than we are 100% committed to having fall sports. We understand the importance of it. We understand that it is a huge part of the undergraduate experience. And I can guarantee you, I want it as much as anybody. But with that said, we're going to do it safely. We're going to do it with intention, and we are going to detail out every piece of the planning process that we need to do. And part of that process is really waiting for the NCAA to come up with some very specific timelines and guidances for Division III specifically. A lot of what you're seeing in the media and publicly is really geared towards Division I. There's a 4-week phased in approach that Division I is following that we just can't follow. Our student athletes get here mid-August, and we're right now scheduled to play games the first week of September. So we don't have a month to phase practice back in. So we're trying to work with the NCAA to see what those best practices get to be for Division III to safely return to participation. So it's NCAA piece, it's state and local health guidance, and then it's our conference. And if you haven't seen it, the Northwest Conference that we're a part of has put out their statement with intention to play fall sports as well. So there is nobody right now that is looking at any part of holding back. And that the reality is much like the spring. And for those that don't know, when we shut down in mid-March, that canceled our seasons in baseball and softball and track, lacrosse, rowing. Just a number of our sports got canceled. The NCAA waived eligibility for that year. So nobody lost a year of eligibility because of that cancellation. And we fully anticipate if schedules were affected in any way, if we lost some contests because of a need to do so, that we wouldn't lose eligibility in this fall either. So, we feel really good about this being a positive experience for everybody. We feel really good about this being a valuable experience to, especially for a freshman to come and interact. I think we are all missing just at a base human interaction. And
Absolutely.
we hear it over and over again from our current student athletes, just how much they miss being on a college campus. And excuse me, athletics as a big part of that, but also the classroom experience, the dorm experience, all of those things are, to some degree, reinforced as a necessity to a great college experience. And we want to facilitate that and are doing everything we can to make sure that happens.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you guys have been working really hard to kind of get some answers, but unfortunately at this point it's kind of out of our hands at Pacific. And we're doing our best to make it as transparent as possible and give you updates as soon as we can, but everything sounds like it's kind of going and we'll eventually get there. So I think one of the other questions that came in prior to the session was, will players be tested and prior to games? So I think this might envelop more of what are our kind of steps that we have in place this fall for our student athletes.
Yeah, and we're continuing to work on that. You know, the testing protocols right now do have a pretty significant rate of false positive and false negative. And testing is, to be honest, pretty expensive. And so to do that on a daily basis, a weekly basis, gets really hard. But what we are doing, and we have worked directly with epidemiologists at OHSU, which for those that are from outside the area, OHSU is the lead health medical school research institution in the state of Oregon. Our president was the provost at OHSU, so she has a ton of connections to one of the top research institutions in the West. And they are helping us develop, both for students, but also with us in athletics, what best practices will be. We will likely temperature check. We will likely symptom check on a daily basis. In anybody that has an elevated temperature, an elevated symptom score, we would then likely send for testing. And that's probably where we're leaning right now. That may change over time. But you know, the NCAA has started to define what a contact sport is, what a intermediate contact sport, and what a low contact sport is. And each of those may have to be handled differently in terms of how we address it. And the NCAA started to use terms of inner bubble and outer bubble. And really teams become an inner bubble organization. And when you talk about practice, competition, weightlifting, team travel, all of those things, you are in a very close family group with your team. And so that becomes the focus is you as a group staying as conscious of symptoms and temperature as possible. With that, then working very, very closely with our peer institutions that we're competing against, and having the ability and the trust as a consortium of institutions that care about each other and want things to be done the right way, to make the right decisions based on a given circumstance and a given sport, if need be.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, I was muted. Could you talk a little bit about what might the move-in process look like if we have an update?
Yeah, and that was a big part of our conversation this morning with the campus opening group. You know, we will likely spread it out more than we have in the past. You know, in football in the past, we've had all, 100 guys show up within the same hour to check in and then move them into the dorms and pick up equipment and check in the training room. And we are likely going to have to spread that out more. And so I know, and I appreciate, and I apologize that we don't have firm dates yet for arrival for our fall sports. And again, this is fall sports specific in terms of those arrival dates. If you are not a cross-country runner, a soccer player, a volleyball player, or a football player, you will arrive with the regular campus move-in, which today I believe is August 26th is what they are targeting for regular freshmen and new transfer move-in dates. But with those fall sports that I talked about, soccer, cross-country, volleyball, and football, that's a little bit of a moving target right now. There is a proposal that hasn't moved forward yet that is asking for a common date of August 15th to start practices. If we do that, we would likely advocate for moving in a few days before that. and being able to stagger the move in and not be pressured up against having to get meetings and practice started immediately, trying to give us a little bit of time to temperature check, symptom check before getting everybody into a group. I don't know if folks saw it. University of Alabama football came back for summer workouts. They immediately tested everybody that showed up, and 7 players tested positive. They don't know if any of those were false positives, but they got them quarantined and out before they ever interacted with people. So we're trying to look at avenues to maybe get people here a couple days early, and not get into full team groups right away, but giving us a little bit of flexibility in how we get everybody checked in through the training room, how we get everybody moved into their dorms without a ton of cross contact.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'm glad you did mention our president's background, just because of her medical knowledge. Very much the student safety is #1 priority for everybody here on campus. And so, we don't want to jump the gun and say like, hey, this is happening, and then, have something like what happened with University of Alabama happen. So we'll definitely keep you guys updated as these kind of decisions come through. One of the questions that we had is, what does the sports or athletic department provide for the students, for student athletes? So we're kind of switching gears from kind of the COVID questions to like general athletics, and what like jerseys, shoes, bags, what are some things that are included for student athletes?
Yeah, that it does vary a little bit from sport to sport in terms of what is provided. Any absolutely necessary equipment, when you're talking football, helmet, shoulder pads, uniforms, those kind of things are provided. I know from the past that for most sports, shoes or cleats are not necessarily provided. Some pay for part of it, and the student athletes pay for another part of it. Oftentimes, some of the accessory swag, as we call it, of hoodies and t-shirts and some of that stuff are purchased by student athletes at a discount. Much of the practice stuff is provided for them. It really does vary from sport to sport. And I encourage you to reach out to your coach and make sure that you know what you need to bring on your own and what will be provided for you, and or what will be available through what we call a flash store that can be purchased through our discount agreement. We are moving likely towards a full Nike agreement with our athletic department here in the near term, and that'll be the uniform that we'll wear. So it's we are well taken care of from a budget standpoint, from the needs, equipment wise, all of that. We do pay for all of our travel. So student athletes are not required to pay for travel and meals when we go to away contests. So, if we fly somewhere to play a game, the institution is supporting the flight, the hotel, and all the meals while we're traveling.
Awesome. And this might be a question for the swim coach in particular, but what about swim goggles that are prescription? I know goggles are typically free, but if there's like a specialized type of equipment they need, would that just be something that they reach out to?
Yeah, I would reach out to coach. I'm not completely sure on that. I know for other sports, we do not purchase contact lenses or, prescription, any of that, but we do have one of the best optometry schools in the country.
We do.
Fraser Horn, who is the interim dean of the School of Optometry, was a golfer at Pacific as an undergrad. He helps us immensely with our sport vision program in athletics, and we do incorporate sport vision training into a number of our sports. It is starting to become a very big part of training, and the eyes are muscles like any other part of the body that can be trained, can be improved. And so we've had a lot of fun working with our optometry school and the Sport Vision group up there for our advantage. I know our baseball and softball teams use it a lot. Football has used it a ton. And we do make that part of the check-in process with our sport medicine group is we do vision screening when students arrive. And I know that went from swim goggles to our sport vision program, but we do have an incredible support mechanism sports medicine wise, and for a small Division III school, there's few that medically have the backing that we do. We have so many health profession graduate programs that we get to take advantage of, from physical therapy, athletic training, optometry. It's been awesome for us. Even occupational therapy has started to work with us. We do get, at times we will have our orthopedic surgeon will be in at least once a week. We have a general practitioner doctor that comes in, as well as we have 2 other doctors that work with our programs. So we're well taken care of in the health and well-being standpoint. And one of the most exciting things that we've added of late is we've partnered with our Graduate School of Psychology. And there's a professor there, Dr. Tamara Tasker, who is a sports psychologist. And she has started to work with teams and individuals and has actually created a group that a couple of her doctoral students are running that is a student athlete support group. And it's just a way for athletes to get together and talk through whatever challenges and issues are facing their student experience, from homesickness to performance questions. It's nice to have a support group and mechanism for what you're going through, especially as a new student. And that's something that's really started to grow, including a former student athlete as well that's a licensed counselor that has volunteered a day a week to come in with us, Eddie Carrillo, who anybody who's been around Eddie, he's about the most lovable guy that Pacific's ever had. And so having him available to our student athletes has been a huge bonus to us as well.
Absolutely. I know about Eddie, and I didn't even work here when he was here. So the next question that pops up is, will your conference play if other conferences do not? And could the NCAA prohibit you from playing?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. The NCAA rules all. And if the NCAA shuts down sports, we would have a really hard time participating. Right now, our conference is committed to participation. And there is, if you're from California or familiar with California, there's a Division II league that has already said they aren't playing this fall. My opinion, they jumped the gun a little bit in that decision and were a little premature in it. But the CSUs, the state schools in California, were going remote learning already as large institutions who had significant hurdles in being able to deliver in-person education. As a small institution, we've got the capability to provide the distancing and the smaller class sizes and reduce capacity to be face-to-face this fall. So we as a conference, the 9 institutions in the Northwest Conference, we're committed to getting it done. And we will play right now, even if that California league has said no.
Awesome. And some of the questions that are coming into me privately is that, we understand COVID is a fluid, kind of ever-changing situation, but for a lot of the families, being able to play or not in the fall is a huge decision factor, and one of the reasons why they have committed to Pacific. And so I know it's a little bit hard, but do you know when we will have a final kind of say in whether or not what's going to be happening and when that's going to happen? Just because I know some families are really kind of anxious about getting that final word.
Yeah. And I guess my answer to that is we are playing. we would have to back away from that as a decision versus we are deciding whether or not we're going to play. That's not where we're at. That's not where our conference is at. Our conference has decided that we are going to play. Now, is that a guarantee that we are going to play every scheduled competition that we have right now? I can't say that with certainty. That would be disingenuous for me to say that soccer is going to play all 20 games, or volleyball is going to play all 30 matches, or football is going to play all 10 games. We can't guarantee that at this point. The NAIA has pushed back their start dates, and that does affect one of our soccer games that we had scheduled early September. All that means right now is we're trying to move it to fit it in later in September. Not that we're canceling it. But if the reality is, if we hit a large scale spike before we return, then there could be some questions about the number of contests we play and the timing of the contests we play. But we want to play. And right now we're doing everything to create an atmosphere in our athletic department that hopefully allows us to do that. We just spent yesterday measuring out and distancing our weight room so that when you get here, we've got a plan for you to get in and get workouts in. Whether you're a fall sport or a winter sport or a spring sport, we want you to be able to get in shape and get stronger, but do it safely. And we have every protocol. Just as an example, yesterday we're walking and trying to map out all these things. Go downstairs, and next to the training room, we have a old school water fountain. We can't use old school water fountains anymore. The training room needs individuals to start bringing their own bottles so that we are not sharing water bottles amongst teammates. So we got to put a hydration station in there, a touchless hydration station. Got on in contact with our facilities department yesterday. We've got it ordered and it's on its way and will be installed before August. That's how fast we're trying to move with every single detail that comes up with creating an atmosphere that's safe. We have eliminated non-student athlete access to the locker rooms downstairs at all. We have, we're working on the athlete only, so to speak, weight room that we would typically open up at times for general use is no longer open for general use. It will just be for athletes. So we're doing everything to at every turn identify questions that need to be asked and then set out to answer those as best we can.
So any expectations on when NCAA will be giving us the final word? Are we hoping in the next couple of weeks? Or?
Yeah, early on, people were hoping that we'd have decisions in May. And, I just kept saying, I think it's going to be the end of June. I think it's going to be the end of June before we really know where we're going and how we're progressing. The NCAA right now has kind of left it up institutionally and by conference as to the decisions, which I think kind of lends itself to us being able to do that up here. We're heading towards phase 2 in the state of Oregon, and that allows us a little bit more activity. We'll likely be able to open up our facility in limited numbers to student athletes that are still here to get them working out again. I am hoping, and I understand, and everybody that's on this call right now, believe me, I know the pressure that you are feeling to book flights and to know when to arrive and feel confident in your decision to be here. But know this from me that health and safety is number 1. Your experience is number 2. us as an athletic department and all of those pieces and our own individual desire to be back in sport is secondary to your health and well-being and the experience that you get to have here. And so we understand how important athletics is to your college experience and what you envision. So that's really our focus right now. And so I know I'm not answering that question with definitive dates, but I would assume late June, right after the 4th of July, maybe at the latest to say this is our plan.
Awesome. And just to reconfirm, I know there was a couple like football and volleyball start dates are supposedly August 15, but that might be changing within a few days with moving.
Yeah, well, right now as it stands, football is August 12th, volleyball is August 18th. But we anticipate that there's going to be some movement on that. Maybe 3 days earlier for volleyball and soccer and cross country, and we may keep the August 12th for football for August 15th first practice. It's going to be around that week. But we have to wait to see where that proposal goes.
Awesome. And the next question that came up is, do you also oversee club sports like cheer or some of our other?
Yeah. So our club sport offerings are cheer, rugby, and handball. And all three of those have been very successful. Cheer right now, is one we haven't really gotten a ton to. We may not have fans in the stands for games. But that's not going to stop us from our cheer teams practicing and being able to continue to do the sport that they love. And we do consider cheer a sport here and know that that's a big part of the process too. So we're ready to go with club sports and excited to get that group here too.
Awesome. And we stream the games too, right? For
Yeah, we'll stream every contest. Obviously, if we have any cross country runners on here, that's a little bit harder to stream a race.
I'll take a golf cart and just kind of follow them.
There you go. But volleyball and soccer and football, we stream all of it, and we're having some conversations about how we can make that more interactive and more engaging if there is an opportunity that we have to limit the number of people in the stands. One of the things I'm very conscious of when we start to talk about spectators is mom and dad. I understand how important it is if you have the chance to get here to see your son or daughter participate in a sport. I don't want to prohibit that. So we're looking at our venues to see how many we could fit in, and we would give priority first and foremost to parents to fill those spaces that we deem available in our various facilities.
Awesome. And so this is kind of an all-around question. Are practices held every day, or does it depend on the sport?
Depends a little bit on the sport, but kind of NCAA rule-wise, you must give a student athlete 1 day off a week. A lot of people use that, one of the days, Monday through Friday, that they give them off, so they have a full academic day without athletic requirements. So typically you're practicing, 3 to 4 days a week, competing 1 or 2 days a week, depending on your sport, and then have 1 day off.
Awesome. And the next question is a great question. For athletes that are arriving early, is the dining hall open? Does their meal plan start then, or does it start after orientation in the first day of class?
Yeah, so anybody that's got to arrive early for sports, there is no added cost on your end to that. So the dorms are taken care of, as well as your meal plan is taken care of by the athletic department. So there won't be any additional charge to that, and we do feed our student athletes until the regular meal plan begins when the rest of the freshman class and new transfers arrive.
Awesome. We spoke a little bit about the weight room and kind of access to locker rooms. Is that going to be limited to current sport athletes during that season, or is it going to be available for all athletes throughout the year?
Our goal and plan is for all athletes. And that was one of the things that we were doing in mapping our facility yesterday. For those that have visited, you saw the field house that we have. For those that haven't, if you jump on our website and kind of look at the field house is what we call it. It's a 55-yard field turf that's inside. And we are trying to configure that space to have running space, agility space, some cardio elements to it, but then also some weightlifting stuff in the field house, of which our box weight room, which is the athletic side, also being available, but moving some of that equipment around so folks aren't so tight together in there. So we'll have some platforms out in the field house for those that need to do some Olympic lifts. We need to keep the racks in the box because those are bolted to the floor. But we think we are going to be able to get everybody in there. And part of the planning process right now is a proposal to eliminate regular student access to the field house and making that an athlete-only facility for the time being because of that need and because of the distancing that's got to occur to lift and run and get agility work done. And some of the sport specific skill work in small group in that field house.
Awesome. And another question that popped up is uniforms and laundry is with the football program or any other program. Do the athletes do it, or is there somebody that does it for them?
No, we do for most sports. We do the laundry for them, and that will become more important given the circumstances that we're under. We'd really like student athletes to not take their sweaty gear back up into their room. So we will help facilitate that. We are going through a process right now at looking at masks for student athletes. I have got a drawing that I'm creating some athlete-specific masks that are branded with Pacific Boxer logos, and we will launder those as well for the students.
Awesome.
And we'll use those in traveling. When we get on the bus, we'll use them most likely in the weight room. And if we're doing small sport-specific skill work, we may require them to wear them there as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And then medical insurance. I know that's a big question that a lot of families have. What medical expenses does college cover? Do I need other insurance? If they need regular PT, how does that work?
Yeah, so every student, regardless of athlete or non-athlete, has to have primary medical insurance. And so athletics goes through your primary insurance first and foremost. What we then add on top of that is a secondary athletic policy. So should somebody get injured in sport and gets treated, regardless of what that treatment is, your primary insurance gets billed. And then whatever your insurance doesn't cover, our secondary insurance kicks in. So there isn't out-of-pocket expenses on that. The asterisk to that is it has to be a sport-specific injury. So if you're walking down the stairs in your dorm and trip and fall and sprain your ankle, that does not become an athletic secondary insurance bill. So very, very well taken care of. If you do have your primary insurance through your employer, that is typically the best insurance to do. If there are challenges with that insurance, the institution does offer a student plan that works fantastic with us down in athletics, as well as the secondary policy. So our team physicians accept almost all insurances. If you are from Hawaii and have HMSA, please call your insurance company and have the conversation that you are sending a child to the mainland for school, and ask if they are covered for primary care while in Oregon. There's some processes that you have to go through. And actually, I'll walk that back a little bit. I think everybody should call their primary insurance before getting here to confirm that you have primary coverage up here. Kaiser is a great one. If you're from California and have Kaiser, you have to set up an Oregon medical record number with Kaiser Oregon before getting here. It's nothing but an administrative process. It doesn't change your insurance at all, but they're different systems. And so the systems have to be able to talk to each other, and you have to set that up. And it's better to do it up front than to try and do it when you're driving to Kaiser for an appointment here in Oregon.
Thank you for that. That's a nice little tip that I'm sure a lot of families miss. And another question is roommates. I know that's always a big question there. Are dorm roommates assigned with teammates, or are athletes still able to room with someone outside of athletics as they're choosing? How does that process work?
Yeah, we don't require that teammates live together. In a decade of coaching, I think it works well if you do, because you are on the same schedule as your roommate. You may have early morning workouts that if you're rooming with a non-athlete, that person may want to stay up until 2:00 playing Fortnite and sleep in until 10. And you've got to get up at 6:30 to go to a workout. That doesn't always work out well in a small dorm room, being on different clocks, so to speak. Now, the dorm assignment process ended yesterday, so coaches have reached out to a number of individuals to talk about that process already. But there is on the housing application a question of were you recruited to participate in any of the following sports, and there's a drop down and you click your sport. Then as they're going through the assignment process, if you didn't put a specific roommate, they will try and pair you with a roommate from that sport.
Awesome. Thank you. I think we are kind of winding down on questions here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to add them in the chat. Again, we will post a video recording of this, so you can always refer back to it. And I do apologize, we don't have a final decision from NCAA yet, but as soon as we hear something, we will let you guys know. Again, we are coaches and all the committee heads are working around the clock to ensure that we have a safe space for all of our students coming to Pacific. So as soon as we have any information or any updates, we will let you know. Any last words, Coach, for the families that are here today?
I only got 2 last words at any time, and that's go Boxers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate you giving us your time. I know you probably have another Zoom meeting that you have to hop into. Hopefully you'll have some time for lunch today. But everyone, thank you again for joining us today for our Lunch with the Boxer series. Next week, we have Kim Garrett from our Office of Accommodations and Accessibility. She's a great point of contact for any questions regarding some of the resources and the learning resources that we have on campus. You are more than welcome to go ahead and register for it. But other than that, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Once again, we do have some social media, and this is actually a great way for a lot of our students to be able to reach out to some of our incoming students and hopefully find a roommate that way if you wanted to. Let me actually get it on the right screen here, sorry. That way you can reach out on your own via Instagram or the Facebook group or Twitter to see if there's a friend that you might like to prefer to room with. So feel free to join us on any of those platforms. We also have a podcast called Lead the Pack Podcast, and we've got various departments that have been on and kind of sharing their department and answering questions. For example, Brian Jackson was on there for kinesiology and kind of the updates about the new program. So highly encourage you to follow our podcast. It is led by our colleague Xavier Harvey, who was also an alum and a football player for all 4 years at Pacific. So it's got a lot of great episodes that you can listen in on. But thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you hopping in. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.